There's something almost ritualistic about the way people talk about AR glasses, like it's this mythic technology that's always just about to arrive. And after testing dozens of them, something started to become clear. The future of AR isn't a single device tucked into a pocket or a headset that weighs a ton. It's a range of glasses that suit every budget, every use case, and every kind of curiosity. So today, we're going to walk through the most compelling AR glasses I've tested, not from some isolated lab or scripted demo, but from real, daily use. From cheap options you can actually get your hands on, all the way up to the most expensive, fully featured systems out there right now. And trust me when I say this, I stayed up way too late crafting this video, not because I love sleep, but because I love clarity, and I want you to see which AR glasses are actually worth your attention at every price point. Now, let's get one thing straight before we start. There are no AR glasses under $100 in any meaningful sense. I scoured used marketplaces, eBay listings, even some obscure seller sites, and the truth is simple: at that price range, you might find gimmicks, toys, or optical overlays that don't do anything smart at all. So, our entry level starts not at $1, not at $50, but at the first price bracket where we actually see AR functionality, around $100 to $200. That's where the journey starts, and some of the most interesting trade-offs begin to show themselves, right? At the bottom of that price tier is a pair of glasses that have surprised me more than I thought they would. The Reno Air 3S. At retail, they're listed closer to $200, but often go on sale right around $189. And for a first real taste of AR without spending a fortune, they punch above their weight. You notice the design immediately: cool silver. Sides, a surprisingly light build at around 76 grams, and a connection that's as simple as USB-C to your phone, laptop, or even a game console. The display inside is 1080p, which sounds modest when you're talking about AR screens, but at this price point, it's remarkable. And the field of view, standardized across devices here so you don't get confused, comes in right around 46, the equivalent of a 135-inch screen at a distance. That's not tiny, it's usable. It's fun. And for people just dipping their toes into AR, it's compelling. Now, here's where the first practical reality kicks in. There's no electrochromic dimming on the Air 3S. That's tech that lets a lens change from clear to darker electronically. But instead, Reno relies on bright displays to make the background seem darker. You're basically pumping brightness against ambient light to give the illusion of contrast. And for a lot of real-world use, especially indoors or in shade, it works surprisingly well. It's not perfect, but it's honest about what it is, and in daily testing it rarely feels like a compromise. It's just not something that replaces sunglasses or transitions. Perfectly outdoors in glaring sunlight, but right next to the Air 3S at a slightly higher price point, still under $200, is another pair that, to be blunt, surprised me more. The Vitor Pro. You can often find these used or on steep discount right around $199, and they look and feel eerily similar to the Vitor Luma Ultras that sit a bit higher up the ladder. They weigh almost exactly the same as the Air 3S at around 77 grams, but the way they connect is different. Instead of USB-C, you get a magnetic cord that snaps on. Some people love how effortless that feels. Plop the connector in and you're ready, but others might miss the universality of USB-C. Honestly, neither is a deal breaker, but it's one of those subtle quality of life choices that reveals a lot about where engineering priorities lie at this price. Field of view again. Comes in at about 46, keeping things standardized so you're not playing a guessing game with arbitrary specs. Across all these entry models, that's been the baseline, so if you see something higher later, it'll feel bigger, and we'll talk about what that means in context. What pushes the Vitor Pro ahead at this price isn't just specs on a chart. It's the brightness jump to a perception of around 1,000 nits and the inclusion of two-step electrochromic dimming. That means you can switch between a semi-shaded view and a pitch-black theater mode background. For $10 more than the base Air 3S, that's a huge quality of life improvement. Suddenly you're not fighting ambient brightness. The glasses help you carve out your own visual space. There's also built-in optical adjustment up to around -5 diopters per eye, which matters more than you might think. Most AR glasses at this price expect you to be near perfect in close focus vision, but with this adjustable diopter, minor vision imperfections are smoothed out. You can tune each eye individually so menus and screens feel sharp without leaning. For people with glasses or contact prescriptions, that's not just convenient, it's almost essential. And the sound quality, while not earth-shattering, is cleaner and fuller than the base Air 3S. You're not getting noise-canceling earbuds here. But once again, for the class of device we're talking about, it's genuinely enjoyable. Now the final unexpected advantage with the Vita Pros is the support for the Spacewalker app when you connect to a Windows PC or a MacBook. You're not just mirroring a phone screen, you're actually opening up triple-screen layouts and ultra-wide modes. That's not something I expected to find at this price point, and it feels a few steps closer to how people actually want to use AR, not as a gimmick, but as an alternative workspace. But before you go thinking this is all rainbows and sunshine, there's a trade-off. The nose pads give you about 3 levels of adjustment, keeping this in the good enough category rather than pro-grade precision. You can tweak how far the lenses sit from your face to bring the whole visual into focus, but it's not 9 levels of adjustment like some pricey models. For some people that's go to customization, for others it's fine. And that's exactly the lesson these bite-sized entry points teach you. At low prices, you're paying for balance, not perfection. If you know what matters to you, these deliver what's essential without charging you extra for needless bells and whistles. Now stepping into the $200 to $300 price range, there's one standout that really begins to feel like a practical daily driver, the Reno Air 3S Pro, coming in around $249. It's a modest bump over the base Air 3S, but it makes a visible difference in usability. I've taken these everywhere: coffee shops, flights, editing sessions, because they just plug and play without fuss. The field of view remains at 46, which might seem unchanged, but this Pro version adds 9 levels of adjustment, 3 up and down for each lens and 3 nose pad positions, giving you fine-tuning that entry models simply can't match. And let's talk brightness. This Pro model pushes up around 1,200 nits. That's almost double what places the base model at a disadvantage. In practical terms, it means menus are clearer outdoors, contrast feels more confident, and you can actually pace task transitions without squinting. Not revolutionary? Maybe, but noticeable. For everyday life, where lighting changes constantly, that matters. For audio, the Air 3S Pro divides modes into standard, whisper, and spatial sound. This isn't just marketing jargon. It gives you real options if you want to prioritize directionality or ambient awareness. Most AR glasses at this price point either half-ass the audio or ignore it completely. The Pro doesn't turn your glasses into earbuds with over-ear fidelity, but it does make calls and media feel integrated, natural, and less like an afterthought. And here's a practical observation you won't read in most spec lists. These Pro glasses don't heat up like most other AR glasses. That's huge. With many devices, low, mid, or high-end, heat builds up near the battery banks, and after a half hour, you feel a warm patch on one side of the frame. It's subtle, yes, but it influences comfort subconsciously. When a device disappears from your awareness, you forget it's there. That's when technology stops being a tool and starts being part of your lifestyle. This Pro version gets closer to that feeling than most other glasses in this bracket. So, if you were to ask me where practicality starts in AR glasses, where you stop feeling like you are testing tech and start feeling like you're using tech, the Air 3S Pro is that threshold. It's not too pricey, it's comfortable, adaptable, and avoids the small frustrations that plague cheaper alternatives. Now, as we step into the next tier, at around $300 to $400, things begin to open up in terms of field of view, a factor so often overlooked because most casual specs focus on resolution or refresh rates, when in reality, field of view is how immersive the experience feels. Perfect example here is the Rokid Max 2. At a discounted price close to $399 right now, these glasses push the field of view to about 50, which equates to a perceived 147-inch screen at distance. That difference, even just a few degrees, makes the visuals feel noticeably larger, more engaging, and actually pulls your attention into the content rather than floating it in front of your eyes. They're also among the lightest options at around 75 grams, which means you can wear them for longer without that neck lean fatigue you get with heavier units. There's no electrochromic dimming here either, meaning the glasses rely on physical shading and brightness rather than electronically shifting tint. But RoKit includes a physical blackout cover that fits over the lenses. And I found this often works better than some of the electronic dimming systems at higher prices. Not because it's smarter, but because it's simple and predictable. You want blackout, you clamp it on. You want transparency, you take it off. Prescription support tops out around -6 diopters, which is deeper than many other models, meaning people who normally wear eyeglasses can use these without contacts or additional inserts. That's not a headline feature, but for real daily usability. It's enormous. Then in the same price range, you have the Viter Luma series, another worthy contender. At just under $400, these glasses also hit a 50 field of view and push the display quality up to 1200p, which gives you tighter pixel density and smoother edges. You also get decent perceived brightness around 1000 nits, though again, this doesn't eclipse the value of simplicity. It complements it. Where the Lumas excel most is their integration with the Spacewalker app. This means triple screen layouts, ultra-wide desktop modes, and much smoother multitasking when connected to a laptop. For people who want ready-made productivity setups without juggling multiple monitors or toggling windows on a tiny screen, this sort of real spatial workspace is a practical game-changer. But that's where we'll pause today, because we've covered the first 3 key price ranges, from under $200 all the way into that $300, $400 bracket, where field of view and adjustability start to feel truly immersive, and you've already seen how performance, comfort, and real usability don't correlate in a straight line with price. The surprises come from how usable these devices are in mid-range environments, and how a few thoughtful features can elevate a pair from cool toy to daily assistant. Now, if you've been following along this far, and you will want to stay tuned, because when we move into the next part, we're entering the $400, $500 range where field of view expands further, and then into the $500, $600 bracket, where you start seeing premium features that genuinely feel like the future of augmented reality. And before that, I promise we'll talk about real user experiences, what it's like wearing these glasses on a long flight, in a cafe, during a meeting, or just walking down the street. Once you cross that $400 line, something interesting happens. The conversation shifts. You stop asking, "Does this work?" and start asking, "Do I want to live with this?" Because at this point, AR glasses are no longer novelties. They're decisions. And the moment you put them on, your brain knows it. This is where glasses like the Viture One XR enter the story. Priced right around the mid-$400 range, these are often recommended as the safe choice, and after long-term use, it's easy to understand why. They don't scream innovation. They don't chase extremes. Instead, they focus on consistency. The field of view stretches to about 50 degrees, which immediately feels more immersive than the 46-degree baseline we talked about earlier. It's subtle, but your peripheral vision picks it up. Videos feel wider. Documents feel less boxed in. You're not staring at a floating rectangle anymore. You're occupying a space. Brightness is strong, hovering around the 1000 nit perception mark, and combined with decent color accuracy, it makes long viewing sessions genuinely comfortable. But what really defines the Viture One XR isn't the display, it's how predictable it feels. Nothing surprises you. Nothing interrupts you. And that predictability builds trust over time, and that's something I didn't fully appreciate until I wore them for hours at a stretch, on a train, at a desk, late at night. There's a calmness to knowing exactly how your glasses will behave. Every single time you put them on, no recalibration, no hunting through menus. Just plug in, adjust, and disappear into your content. But comfort isn't just about visuals. Weight plays a bigger role than people realize, and at around 78 grams, the Viture sits right in that sweet spot, heavy enough to feel solid, light enough to forget. It doesn't tug on your ears. It doesn't press down on your nose. It just stays where it's supposed to be, and yet, even here trade-offs exist. Electrochromic dimming isn't present. You still rely on brightness and optional lens covers for isolation. For some people, that's perfectly fine. For others, especially those moving between indoor and outdoor spaces, it becomes the moment they realize what feature they're missing. That realization usually happens later, not on day 1, on day 5. When you step outside, pause and instinctively expect the glasses to adapt. And they don't. That's when we start creeping toward the next tier. Around the $500 mark, AR glasses begin to feel less like accessories and more like systems. The hardware, software, and interaction models start working together instead of sitting side by side. And one of the clearest examples of this shift is the X-Real Air 2 Pro. These glasses mark a noticeable evolution from their predecessors. The field of view holds at around 46 degrees, which might sound like a step back compared to some competitors, but this is where numbers stop telling the full story. Because perception isn't just width, it's clarity, stability, and responsiveness. Air 2 Pro delivers a sharper, more controlled image with improved edge clarity and a cleaner visual plane. Your eyes don't wander, they don't hunt for focus. Everything feels anchored. And when you wear them for extended periods, that stability matters more than raw size. Electrochromic dimming makes its entrance here in a meaningful way. With multiple tint levels built into the lenses, you can transition between transparency and near blackout without touching a cover or adjusting brightness manually. This turns environmental control into a reflex. Bright room? Darken, outdoor glare. Adjust. Want isolation? One tap dot, and that seemingly small convenience changes behavior. You stop planning around lighting conditions. You just wear the glasses and let them adapt. And when technology adapts to you instead of the other way around, that's when it starts fading into the background. Audio quality improves as well. The speakers deliver clearer separation, better spatial awareness, and less leakage. You can watch a video in public without feeling like you're sharing it with everyone around you. And while it still won't replace headphones, it no longer feels like a compromise. Then there's weight. At just over 75 grams, the Air 2 Pro is lighter than it looks. And combined with better weight distribution, it remains comfortable, even during long sessions. It doesn't slide. It doesn't press. It doesn't remind you it's there. But here's the twist, and this surprised me. Despite all these upgrades, some people actually prefer cheaper models over time. Not because the Air 2 Pro isn't good. It absolutely is, but because it introduces choice. Tint levels, modes, adjustments, options. And for users who want simplicity, those choices create friction. You find yourself deciding instead of just using. That's when the question becomes less about features and more about personality. Do you like control, or do you like invisibility? And this question becomes even more pronounced as we approach the $600 range. Because here's where things start getting intense. Glasses like the Rokid Max Pro push the field of view further, nearing that 55-degree experience that genuinely feels cinematic. At this scale, content doesn't just float, it surrounds. Peripheral immersion becomes part of the experience. Movies feel larger than life. Multitasking feels spatial instead of stacked. Brightness climbs again. Contrast deepens. Colors pop. And with better thermal control, these glasses handle extended use without heating issues that plagued earlier generations. But the real change isn't visual. It's mental. At this level, AR glasses stop being something you try and start being something you choose. You plan sessions around them. You reach for them intentionally. You build habits, and habits reveal truth faster than specs ever could. Some users fall in love with the cinematic immersion and never look back. Others realize that bigger isn't always better, that a slightly smaller display with less demand on attention actually fits their daily rhythm more naturally. And this brings us right to the edge of the most important realization in the entire AR space. The best AR glasses aren't the ones with the biggest screens, the brightest panels, or the longest spec sheets. They're the ones you forget you're wearing, because once you forget, you stop thinking about the technology and start using it as an extension of yourself. And this is exactly where the final tier takes us. Not toward more features, but toward fewer interruptions. Toward glasses that don't shout, don't flash, don't demand. By the time you reach this tier, something subtle has already changed about how you think. You're no longer comparing glasses the way most people do. You're not asking which one is better. You're asking which one feels right enough to earn a place in your daily routine. And that's a much harder question to answer, because now you're dealing with comfort over time, trust, and how much friction you're willing to tolerate before something quietly gets left in a drawer. This is where the higher-end AR glasses begin to separate users instead of impressing them. Take glasses like the X-Real 1 Pro. On paper, they are incredible. The field of view jumps again, pushing past what most people considered possible just a year ago. Once you're in the mid to high 50-degree range, the screen no longer feels like a display floating in front of you. It feels like an environment. Your eyes stop anchoring on edges. Your brain starts filling in space, and that's a big deal because immersion isn't about size alone. It's about how naturally your vision accepts what it's seeing. The One Pro nails this feeling better than almost anything else I've tested. The image is locked in place. Head movement feels natural. There's no drifting, no wobble, no sense that the world is sliding when you move. This stability is what allows you to forget you're looking at screens at all. You're not watching content anymore, you're inside it. Brightness is strong, but more importantly, it's consistent. No sudden dips. No washed out corners. Blacks stay black, whites stay clean, and contrast remains controlled even in mixed lighting environments. Combine that with multi-step electrochromic dimming, and suddenly you realize you've stopped thinking about lighting altogether. Indoors, outdoors, night, day, it just works. Audio also reaches a new level here. Not because it's louder, but because it's smarter. Directional sound becomes clearer. Dialogue sits where it's supposed to sit. Environmental audio doesn't bleed or echo awkwardly. You can be immersed without feeling isolated, which is a difficult balance to strike, but here's where reality steps in. These glasses are not light, they're not uncomfortable, but they're present. At around the high 80-gram range, you feel them resting on your face. You're aware of them during longer sessions. And depending on your head shape, that awareness can slowly turn into fatigue. This isn't something you notice in the first 20 minutes, or even the first hour. It shows up after multiple sessions across days when you realize you're unconsciously adjusting them more often. That tiny shift matters because when comfort drops just enough, habits start changing, and habits are brutally honest. This is also where heat becomes unavoidable. With more processing power, larger displays, and advanced sensors, warmth builds up. Most of it is well managed. None of it is dangerous, but it exists. And once you feel it, you can't unfeel it. Some people don't care at all. Others are extremely sensitive to it. And there's no spec sheet that can predict which group you'll fall into. That's why this tier isn't about winning everyone. It's about commitment. You don't casually own glasses like this. You choose them knowing exactly what they demand from you and exactly what they give back. Now, alongside this path, there's another approach entirely. Instead of pushing immersion further, some companies decided to push independence. This is where systems like the Viture Luma Ultra paired with a neckband enter the picture. And this changes the conversation completely, because we're no longer talking about glasses alone. We're talking about ecosystems. The Luma Ultra by itself already feels refined. The field of view sits comfortably above average. The image is sharp, slightly warmer in tone, and easier on the eyes during long productivity sessions. Color accuracy isn't dramatic, but it's natural, and that matters more when you're reading text or working with documents for hours. But the moment you pair it with the neckband, everything shifts. Suddenly, your phone is optional. You're not mirroring anymore. You're running a standalone system. Apps live inside the device. Processing happens off your head. Battery weight moves away from your face. And for the first time, our glasses start behaving like something closer to a wearable computer instead of an accessory. You launch apps directly. You place windows in 3D space. You interact without reaching for another device. And even though it's not perfect, even though there's still latency, occasional bugs, and moments that remind you this is early, the direction is undeniable. This is what the future is pointing toward. And the most interesting part isn't the visuals. It's freedom. You can sit anywhere. Move anywhere. Use them without thinking about cables, power draw, or phone compatibility. You build a small personal workspace that lives with you. That's something no wired AR glasses can fully replicate, no matter how good the display is. Of course, there are trade-offs. The system adds bulk. The neckband is another thing to wear. Battery life, while decent, isn't limitless. The interface isn't as polished as a phone OS, and app optimization varies wildly. But for the right person, especially someone who values independence over peak visual performance, this setup feels revolutionary. And then there's the extreme M. This is where products stop pretending to be glasses and openly aim to replace laptops. Systems like the In-Air 2 Elite don't compete on field of view alone. In fact, their display specs might seem underwhelming compared to others at this price point. But that's missing the point entirely. This isn't about screens. It's about workflow. With the in-air system, you're no longer limited to 1 or 3 floating displays. You can run up to 6. 6 independent windows positioned around you, persistent, stable, and interactive. That alone changes how you think about productivity and at a physical keyboard. Add a portable compute unit. Add a fully enclosed ecosystem. Designed to travel. And suddenly, the idea of pulling out a laptop feels outdated. You sit, you put on the glasses. And you're working. No unfolding. No balancing. No screen glare from the sun. Just space. Battery life stretches further here, not because it's magical, but because the system is built around efficiency rather than spectacle. Thermal control is handled better than most because heat isn't trapped near your face. And electrochromic dimming reaches a level of control that feels almost analog, smooth, continuous, precise. But again, nothing is free. The field of view shrinks back down. Immersion takes a hit. Cinematic experiences feel smaller. And visually, you don't get the wow factor of the wider AR systems. This is not a device you buy for entertainment. It's a device you buy because you want your environment to bend around your work. And that brings us to the most important realization so far. At the highest levels of AR, specs stop competing with each other. Philosophies do. Some glasses want to disappear and let content take over your vision. Others want to become tools you actively control. Some prioritize independence. Others push immersion beyond comfort. There is no universal best anymore, only alignment. By the time you step back and look at everything together, a pattern becomes impossible to ignore. The glasses that impressed you the most on day 1 are rarely the ones you end up using the most on day 30. That gap between excitement and habit is where almost every AR product quietly succeeds or fails. Because once the novelty fades, you stop caring about specs you can't feel. You stop caring about peak brightness numbers if the glasses feel heavy after an hour. You stop caring about record-breaking field of view if the setup takes too long to start. You stop caring about advanced modes if using them feels like work instead of relief. What actually matters is friction. How fast can you put them on? How little do you have to think? How easily do they fit into moments that already exist? This is why some of the simpler AR glasses survive long-term use better than technically superior ones. Glasses like the Renio Air 3S Pro don't try to change how you live. They slip into gaps that already exist. Plane rides, coffee shops, late night, editing, gaming in bed, watching a show without disturbing anyone else. You don't reorient your life around them. You just use them. They don't demand choices. They don't ask you to manage space. They don't want you to curate environments. You plug them in, the screen appears, and your brain accepts it instantly. That kind of reliability builds trust. Faster than any feature ever could. And trust is the most underrated feature in AR. On the other side, the more advanced systems reward intention. Glasses like the Xreal 1 Pro, and similar high immersion devices don't want to be background tools. They want your attention. They want you to sit down, align posture, adjust positioning, and commit to an experience. When you do, they deliver something extraordinary. But when you don't, they wait. This creates a fascinating split in behavior. Owners of high-end AR glasses often love them deeply and use them selectively. Owners of simpler AR glasses use them constantly and think about them less. Neither approach is wrong. They simply reflect different relationships with technology. The same split exists at the extreme end, where AR systems try to replace laptops entirely. Devices like the in-air ecosystem don't compete with glasses anymore. They compete with workflows, with desks, with habits built over decades. When they work, they feel like the future arrived early. 6 screens floating effortlessly. No neck strain, no cramped displays. No dependency on physical monitors. You feel unshackled from environments designed for the last generation. But when they don't, the friction is magnified. Updates matter. App support matters. Interface decisions matter. Because you're no longer forgiving glitches in a gadget. You're forgiving interruptions in your work. That's why these systems appeal to a very specific type of user. Someone willing to trade familiarity for potential. Someone comfortable adapting. Someone excited by possibility rather than polish. And then there are the hybrid paths, glasses paired with neckbands, compute units, or modular add-ons. These sit in the most interesting middle ground. Not fully standalone, not fully dependent. Powerful, flexible, but still evolving. They hint at what's coming next, because if there's one thing this entire landscape makes clear, it's this. AR glasses are no longer chasing a single future. They are fragmenting into identities. Some are becoming personal theaters. Some are becoming productivity tools. Some are becoming quiet companions. Some are becoming platforms. And that fragmentation is healthy. It means the category has matured enough to stop pretending one design can serve everyone. So, when someone asks which AR glasses are the best, the honest answer is almost always disappointing. The best ones are the ones you forget about, the ones that slide into your life so smoothly that you stop thinking of them as technology at all. Whether that means lightweight plug-and-play glasses that turn any moment into a private screen, or powerful immersive systems that replace entire setups, the success metric is the same. Do you reach for them without debating it? If the answer is yes, they've won, and that's the quiet truth behind all of this. Not field of view, not brightness, not resolution, not even price, but alignment. Alignment with how you work. Alignment with how you relax. Alignment with how much complexity you're willing to accept. Alignment with the kind of relationship you want with technology. Because AR glasses aren't just showing you content anymore. They're shaping how you occupy space, how you manage attention, how you decide when to disconnect and when to lean in. And that's why this moment matters. Not because these are perfect. Not because they've replaced anything yet. But because, for the first time, they're good enough to reveal what we actually want from them. And once that question is answered, the rest of the future will follow.